Hello. Hi, how are you doing? That was Is that one? Should we pass it back and forth?
Pass it back and forth?
Okay. I'm going to pass it to you then.
I'm going to get this kicked off, just ask a couple questions, but please, this is your opportunity to ask Don questions about his work and anything that's on your mind. So I'm going to jump this off, but then please be ready to raise your hands. I'd like to start, of course, talking about the new film, Chapter 3, Such a Beautiful Day. How did you come to this conclusion with Bill? What brought you here? Did you know from the beginning this is where he was going to go? Did your process bring you there? I'll let you say this.
Well, oh, hey, hello, it works again. Wow, where to start? Well, the first chapter, I didn't even think it would lead to a trilogy. I just had such a great time writing it and animating it. It was kind of night and day compared to the previous thing I worked on, which was a really horrible production. I just had so much fun. I wanted to keep writing, and so I think midway through everything will be okay. I knew I wanted to keep going, and maybe this could be a trilogy. But I work so slowly, and it's typically just me in a sad little room for a couple of years, whether I'm drawing or writing or shooting or making editing notes or the sound, etc. So I rarely start with a finished script. I have more luck and fun if I start with a few ideas, and by the time I've animated those, I've got other ideas, and I can work those in, and then by the time I've reached that point, 6 months later, I've got all this other stuff that I can now put in, so it feels a little more spontaneous. And so I know it's kind of stupid to make a trilogy without knowing where the third one really is going to go, but I approached each one ideally as a standalone piece, so that you didn't need to see number one to know what's going on in number 2, and then maybe 3 can stand alone if you just see it at the film festival somewhere. And so that was very important, and I had a few ideas for Chapter 3 while I was working on I Am So Proud of You, but I wound up cannibalizing all of them and stuffing it into I Am So Proud of You. Like the ending of I Am So Proud of You was originally how the third one was supposed to end. And so I started It's Such a Beautiful Day with really nothing. I knew he'd wake up in a hospital after having that seizure, and that was it. I kind of approached it like any other short, and 2 years later, again, the ending completely changed, and that 5-minute thing where maybe he or maybe not lives forever was again very last minute. I realized not until when I sat in Hollywood, we ordered new film prints for this tour, and it wasn't until I sat and watched them in a screening room to approve them that I realized I hadn't watched Everything Will Be Okay or I'm So Proud of You just even once for reference while working on the third one. I don't know how that happened, and I know maybe that was kind of stupid too, but I wanted so very much for these to not rely on each other, and I was surprised that they actually kind of played well together. And so now I think for television or DVD, maybe I'll knock out the credits of 1 and 2 and edit the whole thing together as a seamless thing, because it seems to kind of play well as a nice long piece.
It's wild to hear that that's how you came to it. As I'm sure many here, seeing part 3 was a shock to me, the revelation that perhaps we've been experiencing the narration, at least how I interpreted it was this has actually been from Bill's point of view, at least from part 3, where we realized there were realities that we thought were the hook arms and all sorts of things, and you make us doubt every single thing we've experienced before with them. How much of your filming process informs the way the story became told in the end, and vice versa? When you came up with an idea perhaps for something that was part of Bill's story, did that inform how you decided to shoot a certain portion or use a technique of a certain way, back and forth?
Wow, yeah, it's, let me think. In the very beginning of the first chapter, it was the main breakthrough there was just figuring out how to split the screen up into different windows. And I shoot on these old cameras. They're down shooters where the camera's anchored above your artwork. And the story was based on a comic strip, and I kept thinking about the story in panels. And I don't remember when this happened, but it was a big deal when I figured out, hey, wait a second, let's split the screen up with multiple exposures and shoot this little corner, and then we'll rewind the camera and then expose this little corner. And it's pretty much literally shooting through little holes. There's a platform beneath the camera lens where I slide a little scraps of black construction paper, and with tiny, tiny holes. And so it's shooting right through these holes at your artwork below. And when they zip around and open and close, it's just stop motion animation on a very small scale. And so when I'm working on one of these movies, the floor of the studio is just littered with little scraps of black construction paper, like a depressed little kid's art room. I'm trying to find like the right holes, the right size. And that really broke the dam down for writing, because all of a sudden it made sense, when Bill's confused, the screen can split up and I can play with the exposures. And then I think in the new movie, it was the first shot that was shot that Bill is kind of doing like Roger Rabbit stuff in the photo real world, whatever. It was when he's looking at his cabinet, when he opens that cabinet at the wood, and that just came out looking better than I thought it could, and I just wanted to keep doing more of that. And so that kind of snowballed, and that informed really back and forth the writing and the camera work for the ending, where it just keeps, I keep trying to push those visuals. And a lot of that was shot through magnifying glasses, really cheap plastic magnifying glasses to kind of get that weird warped look. Some of it's shot through broken glass. Some of it's shot through like toy packaging. Like when you get like a toy, you get like the cardboard back and then the toy, and then there's a plastic shell. Like some shots were shot through a snorkel mask shell for a little kid that kind of warped it and kind of pulled. I don't know, I just like building these things with my hands, and so yeah, I'm gonna take this off.
While he takes that off, let's open this up to you guys, because I can keep asking all night. So we've got the wonderful music box in the audience with microphones, and let's see, it looks like we've got